Hello, everyone. Welcome again to our panel. It's called DAO's Stack Essential and Where Tooling is Needed the Most. Yeah, I'm Varit from Curia Lab. Let me give you like a brief context on on this panel. So, in general, DAOs has been promising the future of coordination, but in reality, as if you've already been in one, we all realize it's messy and just a lot of friction, right? And the gap between the reality and what's promised is what folks here in this panel has been, working on, creating some solutions on that. And yeah, since we have a very short 30 minutes session here, we're gonna get started to the point right away. And just to kick off a start, I'm gonna pass it to our incredible panelists here. A quick starter round. So you please introduce who you are, what are you working on, and maybe number one pinpoint you're obsessed in solving in the DAO space. Yeah, let's go with Jordan first. Man.
Yep. Hello guys, I'm Jordan. I'm the solutions lead at Aragon. And yeah, we build custom tooling for DAOs. We also focus a lot on value accrual tokenomics, and that's really the number one pain point we're focusing on right now. Everything is downstream for us of making the token work for token holders, making value accrue for token holders, and how do you build governance systems and capital allocation systems that mean everybody's happy. When things are going well, everybody's happy, governance works. When token price breaks down, that's when all of the problems come through. So for us, the number one thing, accrue value, accrue value, accrue value.
Hey everyone, my name's Nicholas. I'm a co-founder of HATS Protocol. We work on enabling DAOs to give specific roles, responsibilities, and resources to subsets of the DAO so that they can act on behalf of the DAO and to save costs. We're trying to get away from DAO votes as much as possible. And the way that I articulate the problem that we're solving is that there's a trilemma between effectiveness of decision making, the costs of decision making, and then the decentralization or hardness or resilience of each delegation that the DAO makes. So that problem framing has helped us think about the first principles of DAOing and of organizations generally. And I think as we build technology at HATS to solve that, that's the main way that we look at all of the problems in the space.
Hey everyone, I'm T, product manager at Powerhouse. Powerhouse originated from MakerDAO, Sky by now, and there we had this first-hand experience of the chaos and information overload of one of the longest running DAO experiments in the space. And all of those pains we've then started translating into an open source backend. Imagine it a bit like a Google Drive that you can have your own custom documents in to run your workflows and very specific business processes that DAOs require. But now with the tools that you would expect to see, such as an operation history that's signed with your ETH address or whatever address. And it's those structured documents that we hope that you can work with, can start with, to bring more clarity, data clarity, structure, and also consensus within your DAO or open organization so that we can escape this information overload and chaos that we're currently still experiencing.
Hello everyone, I'm Gonzalo, co-founder of WakeUp Labs. We have been helping startups and DAOs for the last 4 years in the crypto ecosystem, and we have been helping Bellora since February this year. Related to that, it's very interesting to be here because Bellora is a very good DAO, very healthy. We're very proud of helping them. And related to that, the biggest issue that we have been seeing is that DAOs sometimes lacks of leadership or technical experts. Having these amazing protocols are great to use it and to improve governance at all, but as well you will need people there helping and achieving the task that the DAO is looking for. For example, grow the TVL, make the price go up, help generate more transactions, and maybe that's the issue that I have been paying attention lately.
See. That's amazing. Yeah, so I think this will be more of an open discussion, picking pain points. So as you mentioned, Jordan mentioned about value accruing tokens. How do you see that in play in like, how do you see the trends going right now regarding incurring values to token holders?
Yeah, I think you're at a point where we had this period where you could just like add governance, stick it on the end, and that would somehow magically accrue value. That's turning out that's not played out. And so I think what we're going to see over the next certainly 6 months is investors and the market in general are going to be demanding that there's some sort of like mechanism where your protocol has to do something that has value. Like that's a baseline. You can slap whatever fancy tokenomics you want on top of it. That's not necessarily going to drive real value. You need to create real value, and then you need to have a way that like feeds back through to the people who invested in your project. And in an ideal world, this is decentralized, permissionless, so it doesn't matter if that person is a VC or that person's like someone who just hopped on chain and bought whatever it is, maybe like some HATS tokens or something like that. And you need to distribute that, and I think we're going to see that like more and more mechanisms need to be built to sort of properly institutionalize this into the space. It's basically about growing up, right?
What an amazing milestone that our industry is actually allowed to think about this, building the best possible assets. They're not only programmable, but they're value accruing. They have revenue, real revenue backing them. We're seeing buybacks across the space. Like we could not talk about this 2-3 years ago. It's a complete shift in the way the industry is, and I think that the investors that are investing in these assets are actually much more mature than they were a few years ago too. So it's a really interesting time to be building these types of mechanisms.
You guys have any other takes on that?
Yeah, I can only allude to that. Like it's a time of growing up. It's a time of professionalizing. It's a time of taking it serious, and we're seeing that in every part of the stack, not only the tokens or the protocols, but also how do we communicate with each other? How do we send over files? How do we create projects that actually have deliverables and milestones where we can hold somebody accountable when somebody's been grifting or politicking or using back channels to get his own stuff promoted. I think we're always talking about transparency, but there's actually very, very little transparency in DAOs, and there's a lot of hey, I know this person, can you get me to do that done? I think we have seen that we're lacking that data clarity and transparency in bigger organizations. We're hoping to bring it back.
Talking about accountability and like transparency, I know that there was this one of your articles, Nicholas, you shared on Twitter, X, I mean. Like, what's your view on like those areas that needed to improve the most?
So when you have you rely on the full DAO vote for capture resistance, you can ultimately your accountability comes from the democracy that sits at the top of the DAO. But that is very expensive to use in terms of attention costs. So we can't vote on everything. We don't, like in the United States, we wouldn't vote on everything in a government. It doesn't make sense. So then you get to this question of like, okay, how do we delegate specific power to individuals, to sub-DAOs, to councils, security councils, committees, in a way that we can hold them accountable? And a lot of the legal engineering we've seen creates different foundation structures and labs corps that introduces that sort of accountability. But really, we have this amazing tool called a smart contract that lets you design any accountability mechanism that you want. So one that we're really excited about is staking, having financial stake for a given role. So you are going to sit on the grants committee. You're going to give out 50K in 5, 10K chunks with 4 other people. If you guys will each put up 1 ETH that can be slashed by the DAO if you start to abuse your role, and the DAO can also revoke your power. And if we add things in like reputation systems that show how you were a good actor or a bad actor over time, I think that type of on-chain mechanism is going to be very, very, very interesting for getting to this different level of professionalism in the space.
Yeah, Gonza, I believe you are one of those core contributors. You know, you're building a lot of stuff for project stuff, and you have like a direct experience, you know, delivering a lot of projects. And you know, how do you? What's your take on this as you know the one who's involved in that?
Yes, I really like what Nicolas was saying. A good DAO contributor will be someone that showcases what's the value that that person has been adding to the protocol, to the DAO. But at the end of the day, the only one seeing that is the one writing that. So it's great to have tools that enables the accountability to be taken serious. And like the guy says, now you have the tools to do that. We help, for example, to build the distribution mechanism for rewards and gas refund, and you don't want the company behind the protocol to run that kind of projects because you want a third party to run that service. We build that and we showcase every month how the distributions are done. We put the forum, and ideally you go through a process that you start automating the whole process, avoiding any person to be in the whole process. So you can really run a DAO, because here we are talking about technology and finding how to improve this ecosystem with the least amount of people. So I think that we are in a particular moment where the tools are ready to be built. You have amazing people building good products, and the DAOs are mature enough to start taking in count that kind of products or tools.
By the way, that's exactly right. It's going to get automated. It needs to be automated. It needs to be commoditized. Like, we need to stop playing around with financial engineering at the core and move the product to the core. And so everything you just said makes total sense. You need to have these robust distribution systems, these robust sort of ways of working, automate it, delegate it, and then get people focusing on building like actual meaningful products, 100%.
In the future, of course, we are people, right? But an agent will do a lot of things. And we need to start building the tools to let the agents operate DAOs or help us operate the DAOs. So it's a great moment to be here.
Do you think like right now, what kind of the tools that we're still missing that you think should be one, but we're not having much of that yet?
Well, I think as Nick said, like there's been a little bit of a lack of a willingness to engage into some tools because of a regulatory point of view. So these is especially like there's a bad word dividends, there's securities tensions. Again, you have to grow up. Like resolving that tension is like our job. So we have to figure out some good structures that institutions can use, like people can use in the US, like at the end of the day. But I think the big ones are like flexible distribution tools, flexible allocation tools, systems that work with existing governance structures, like systems that work in existing legal structures. I know there's been a lot of talk about Junas and Borgs and things like that. So I'd be interested to see how that plays out. It's not my full expertise, but exactly as people have been saying, is good automation systems that get the DAO tooling out the way, basically.
There's a couple layers of DAO tooling, right? So that a lot of the stuff you just talked about is like contract level, organizational level, the stuff that competes with legal contracts and capital formation and traditional markets. I'll tee up T here and say that the other side of it is the coordination suite, right? Like a lot of us are still using Google Docs and Notion because those are good solutions, or people have played around with Charmverse and Fileverse, but they don't quite go all the way to being able to facilitate a fully professional organization managing hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. So I think that like there's a huge opportunity for communications, file sharing, and I'll let T jump off from there.
Yeah, 100%. I think Vitalik has been even mentioning a couple of times that he wants to see these products being built, like open source document editors, tools to run your businesses on instead of running it on the Google Suite. And then on top of that, maybe to go back to your question, Varit, something that we are missing is within that coordination infrastructure, an actual identity or reputation that is functional and that you can make use of. We haven't really cracked the identity and reputation problem in our space. Yes, we have CT, which has a very weird type of reputation and fame going on there, but you want an identity that is very contextual to the space that you're in, because a trader has a different set of values than the governance people here, and that reputation needs to be able to change based on the context and the environment that you're in. So we're looking at, okay, if you have a coordination infrastructure where you record all of the modifications you do to your documents or the contributions that you do, can you also track them and can you let them flow into a reputation system that is functional and contextual to the organization that you're in? Very low-key, not something that needs to spread out of the organization, but within your organization can be very functional. So we're doing the first experiments there, and I'm very hopeful for any other initiatives to also go the same way.
Identity is something that you need to show you and be accountable, but as well, for example, the tool that I really like is something like HATS protocol, in a way that, okay, for this period of time, I will take this role, I'm doing this for this particular DAO, let me be, for example, the one leading finance, let me do DeFi on top of this treasury, and after a period of time, you can take that role out. I think that will lead to, at the end of the day, to more accountability and to more ownership, which is something that DAOs lacks. Like, okay, you're responsible of what you do, but at the end of the day, it's a group of people, and there is no one particular leader. So who will be the one that say, okay, you did the things wrong? Having particular roles for particular moments in time is a must. And I think that's, for example, a tool that I'm really looking forward to start gaining more and more adoption.
Just to jump off that, and thanks for the shout out, I think that we can simplify the problem of like who is the right decision maker or set of decision makers for each decision that the organization needs to make. And one type of decision might be running a marketing group. Another type of decision might be holding the marketing group members accountable, right? And that you can sort of bake those down into a single primitive, which is a role, or what we started calling a trust zone. And I think that frame of like, okay, here's the simplest building block of a DAO. The DAO is a trust zone. The marketing committee is a trust zone. The accountability person role that holds the marketing committee accountable is a trust zone. And then trust zones have some sort of certain parameters, and they can be held by people or groups of people, or also by AI agents, and make this like super AI forward in our DAO structures. I really think there's something there that is going to start to unfold in the next 6 to 12 months.
I recognize you guys are mentioning a lot the topic of like reputation, right? So what do you think reputation system-wise right now? What do you think is like the most important thing right now? And what's the issue with the current reputation system now? Do you know?
We as we looked at the trilemma, the third dimension, which is hardness, which we got from Josh Stark from the Ethereum Foundation, wrote this wonderful piece called Atoms, Institutions, Blockchains. You have to read it if you haven't read it. It's formative thinking for Ethereum. He says basically that smart contracts offer this property called hardness, which is like reliable future outcomes. So what we can program into the smart contract is hardness. What we can't program into the smart contract is how much we trust one another. And reputation really solves that half of the problem. So if I know that if you put up a financial stake and I can slash your stake as the DAO and I can kick you out of the DAO if you misbehave, but then like that you have some relative autonomy in a given role, I need to trust you that amount. So if you put up 1 ETH but you're in charge of 10K, then I'm sort of giving you trust equal to 10K minus 1 ETH. And that should sort of be able to be quantified based on your prior actions and the transitive trust from people who vouch for you in the organization. I think that's something that we're starting to see, but we still really need to quantify.
I remember like there were these, I think it was Gearbox, who had they had smart contracts where you could load up function selectors and then you would allow someone to do under-collateralized lending if you met certain function selectors. Even as I'm saying that, there's a good chunk of people who are like, what the hell are you talking about? And so when you talk about reputation, I'm thinking there's a problem of auditability in like, you probably need abstractions for the average person to engage into any sort of on-chain reputation system in a meaningful way, aka summarize what these actions actually mean for someone who doesn't want to spend their time, even if you are a Solidity developer, like going through what such and such wallet has done and what that means and what the implication is and what the second and third, blah, 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 blah. So maybe something like an abstraction layer, an AI layer is actually essential for this.
Yeah, in terms of reputation, I'm always hopeful for these initiatives such as the decentralized identifiers or the verifiable credentials to really take off and to see that composability. But since that hasn't really taken off, there are like initiatives such as HATS protocol that do show that it's another layer that you could stack into on top of other tools. So if you're asking me what's the issue with reputation, it's maybe that interoperability, composability, being able to transfer parts of your reputation from one organization to another, show what you're doing here and there. That might be one of the missing pieces that we're currently looking for.
Do you think reputation should be portable, like across organization?
I think it definitely should be portable, but it should also be. You should be able to hide it. You should have selective disclosure. Like nobody knows me as the same person. To every person, I am a different person, and that should also be possible in the organizations or the spaces that you operate. You don't necessarily want to open the closet and show all the skeletons. Like sometimes you just want to start with a fresh sheet, and that should definitely be possible.
Before Eigen stole the term intersubjective and made it mean exactly one thing, I think people in the reputation space used to talk about subjectivity in reputation, and that overlaps a lot with what you just said. Like, how much I trust you is very different than how much someone else might trust you. And because we have a dyad in our relationship, and quantifying that's really hard. And then making that transitive so that someone can look at my trust for you and then make that mean something. I think that's a very, very complicated problem. But if you could put some math and primitives that compress the complexity of that and make it sort of more available to people, then you could have meaningful, portable reputation systems that had that subjectivity built in.
It's very interesting. Any other issues you want to mention about besides reputation? I think we went pretty deep on the reputation just earlier. Any issue you guys think there's still unsolved and something that you guys want to mention about? Since
I'll maybe bridge a prompt from reputation to something else we talked about, which is we talk about human reputation, but also AI agents having reputation is a really interesting design space, and that those systems might not need to be that different. So I'm curious what you guys think about that.
My take is that people think about their people. I mean, to your person, your first person, as something very relevant. But in internet, you can create multiple personalities. And you can play different roles on each of those. And I think that we are like letting our physical person have a lot of course, you will take care of you, it's the one that most represents you, but in internet you can create multiple personalities and you can play different roles. And I think that that's what will happen with AIs. So, for example, you can create a new pseudonym and start being a DeFi expert, do that role for several years, grow your pseudonym, and later, when the AI is built right, then you can adapt the AI and let that person work by themselves. I think that the future will look like something like that. It's hard to explain, but well, I think that's at least my point of view.
Are you saying that the agent is going to automate the work that the person has been doing?
No, I think that you need to build a personality, build, for example, the specific topic that you will lead, talk about, discuss, and after that, you will transition in a way that you will let this new character, this AI or whatever, to take that role and helps you do your role better. And what I was talking is, for example, in a DAO where you can be anonymous, you can have a pseudonym, or you can be yourself. It's a place where you can play a little bit with this idea. For example, you can play as a technical expert, but in other DAO you can play as a very good marketing guy. And I think that's an interesting space to explore these kind of ideas.
Yeah, in terms of AI agents, what we're mostly looking at is to, within the coordination infrastructure that we're building, to embed them within the conversations that you're having with others. So because you're sharing documents and context within a thread or a message channel, an AI can always help you with the more tedious tasks, making sure that all of the data is represented well, making sure that the different files are in the right location. So we're currently imagining it more and more as a helper, as somebody that watches along over your shoulder and just increases your productivity, unburdens you from smaller tasks, and eventually I imagine that the responsibilities of those agents will increase as they become more potent.
I think what we saw is you have to keep the system still decipherable to people. So you might use role primitives, you might have like document primitives, but like someone has to understand that, and then you can't put the cart before the horse, right? Like you can't say, oh, my system's so complex and so rigid that no one knows how to use it except like these black magicians, and then it's like, oh, we'll just stick AI and it'll solve it. It's like you need good building blocks, like I said, roles, reputation, like good ways for people to share information. You need flexible financial primitives. And then you can introduce AI. I think that that's a big risk in the space. I've been to a few DeFi AI events where the complexity's gotten so crazy that I don't think anyone knows what's going on. That's not how you build organizations.
Cool. I guess since we almost time already, maybe just quick fire answer round. Maybe what do you think is like future pain points or like future issues that you think beside what we mentioned earlier hasn't been tackled enough, and you think people should start like exploring ways to actually solve the problem?
People are going to run into real world limitations that in the real world you have to build companies in real countries, and you're going to run into banks and you're going to run into agencies, and you have to be ready for that.
Adoption, like mass adoption, like.
Yeah, but before mass adoption, it's just like, just dealing, like growing up. It's the thing we said at the start.
My sort of utopian vision of the future is that everything becomes a DAO. We can widely distribute the ownership of everything that we touch and that we are stakeholders a part of, and then align incentives amongst all of the stakeholders of that thing through that ownership. That's like the most amazing thing about capitalism, although it has some challenges. So I think the challenge, like the core challenge, is the Molochian optimization, competition, downward spiral that one of us can make the move of doing something selfish and everyone has to do that to compete. That's like the thing to solve. And if we can solve that with smart contracts, then we might be in a much better world.
Mine is very similar to yours, actually. So you're mentioning that everything can become a DAO. At our team, we're often ideating or thinking about why isn't there a decentralized and cooperative version of Uber, of YouTube, of Etsy, of Deliveroo? Why aren't the platform participants not owning that software? And yeah, currently we just aren't sufficiently able to coordinate professionally to pull that off. If we get to do that, if we can nail that, then hopefully one day we can also stop with these business models that require algorithms to be maximally attention grabbing and triggering. So it has a lot of downstream consequences once we could cooperatively own these platforms that we're part of or that we're contributing to.
And I will be short, we are running out of time, but I want to give my 2 cents about this topic. And this, hopefully, a lot of things become a DAO, but as well, the DAOs that will survive will be the ones that are healthy, so the income should be higher than the outcome. So maybe you can do a DAO with a group of friends because you have no expenses there, and as well about a good company who has a healthy revenue share or revenue mechanism. But it's important to pay attention to that because you have several DAOs that are having a lot of trouble taking or earning some money, and if the expenses are too high, maybe soon you will be in trouble. So ideally, I'm with you in the future will be great, but let's pay attention to that kind of scenarios just in case. My closing thoughts.
Great. Thanks again, Jordan, Nicholas, T, and Gonza for this incredible, insightful panel. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, guys, everybody.